So Dan, companies are adopting AI now at breakneck speed, yeah? And I mean, as we know, working within financial services, that our clients have to pay attention to a lot of the risks. So what are you seeing, I suppose, out there in terms of the kind of risk appetite around AI and how some of these firms really are kind of looking at these risks?
We're still seeing it as a spectrum with two ends. One, very risk averse still to do anything with AI, or maybe wanting to do AI in a very specific way to reduce whatever risks they are or do not like. And then on the other side, people who are a lot more willing to try out the very kind of bleeding edge of AI. And I think the predominant, most of AI is bleeding edge still, because it's changing so frequently.
And so let's look at the ones who are quite willing, yeah, because that's kind of interesting, because I think there's quite a lot of that going on. And what's driving that? Is there a fear out there that people kind of in terms of their peers or competitors are ahead of them, and that's then perhaps taking them towards risks that they wouldn't normally kind of accept? What are you seeing with those guys who are kind of more willing?
It's really interesting when I speak to clients and when I speak to people more generally, there is the view that everyone else is doing AI quicker, more faster, or they're using much more AI in their business than perhaps you are. But they also accept that that's probably not quite true, and that potentially people are more on the same level than they might outwardly show. It is tricky. There is a lot of pressure, and the risks around AI, I don't think have necessarily gotten any bigger or greater if you're wanting to use new AI tools. I think versus a couple of years ago, we just understand the risks a lot more in detail, but ultimately it's up to each individual person, company to accept whether they want to take on those risks and use the very latest and greatest in AI, or take a little bit more of a sit back and see what others are going to do.
So, would you say that we're seeing a bit of FOMO here, kind of like a fear of missing out, and companies there are being kind of like more inclined to take on more risk? And I mean, this isn't kind of, technology, in terms of its adoption rate. We've been here before kind of with the cloud, and there was a lot of risk and a lot of fear. And so, and I remember, there was a lot of people trying to get on that bandwagon. So how does that compare, to what happened with the cloud? And are we seeing people kind of even more willing to take more risk this time round, or have lessons been learned? What's the difference between the two?
And you see this constantly. There's new AI, there's a new capability. One of the existing AI vendors has released an update, and now it can do this really interesting thing. There is, I think, a desire to want to use that. I mean, AI has a lot of promises. It's going to solve a lot of problems. It's going to make things a lot more efficient. The more we see the changes, the updates, the more the interesting of the capability we see, the more kind of specific it can now do something more specific that we've always wanted it to do. So now we actually might want to then install that, start using that. So the capabilities around AI and how it's been changing, I think, definitely creates an atmosphere of wanting to jump on that bandwagon and try it. It's interesting, there is a parallel to cloud. Cloud 10 years ago was this huge shift away from what we'd been doing for years, and now AI is kind of asking us to do the same thing, dramatically shift the way we do technology or use technology. Where it kind of falls short, though, is with cloud. Cloud took a long time to convince a lot of people. There were the early adopters. A lot of the big streaming platforms not naming any names, but a kind of really, really big one, that started off on AWS as a startup. However, the kind of more institutional businesses didn't move to cloud for a long time. But with AI, we're still seeing that kind of big shift like we did with cloud, but people are a lot more willing to move to it a lot more quickly than we did see with cloud.